Hi there, I'm Amanda Castor with Material Girl Quilts. Today I'm going to show you how to make the Daydreams quilt. Now you can make this quilt in two different sizes. If you use pre-cut 5-inch squares, you can make this 24-inch mini quilt size. This one I made last year using my Dreamweaver fabric collection. And if you'd like to use pre-cut 10-inch squares, you can make this 64-inch throw size quilt. And that's what we're going to make today. So for today's quilt, I'm using this 10-inch stacker of Ava Kate by Karina Gardner, and you will also need a 10-inch stacker of a background fabric. And if you don't have a 10-inch stacker or a layer cake of a background, you can use 2.5 yards and then cut it yourself. So let's get started. The first thing you'll need to do is to select 16 different pairs of prints from your pack. Now what I mean by that is you'll select 16 different prints that have at least 2 of the same print from the pack. If in this collection I was able to do that with 16 different prints. If yours doesn't have at least 16 prints with multiples of 2, then I would suggest that you get you pair like colors together so that for each block, and then that'll just make yours just a little bit scrappier version. To make the blocks, you will need 2 print and 2 background squares per block. So for one of the print and background squares, we're going to cut each of those into 4 4.5-inch squares. When I do this, I prefer to trim off the pinked edges on 2 sides so that I can have a straight edge when sewing these together. So I'll start on one side, trim off just a little bit, and then I will cut my 4.5-inch squares from there. And I'll just stack these on top of each other. So now that these 4.5-inch squares are cut, we can set those aside. For the remaining print and background squares, you're going to place them right sides together, and on the back of the background square you're going to draw diagonal lines from corner to corner, both directions. And then you will sew 1/4 inch on either side of those lines like I've done here. Once you've sewn on either side of the lines, we're going to cut in 5 inches vertically and horizontally. So we'll be cutting right through the center. And then finally we will cut directly on the drawn diagonal lines. Now once all of these are cut, you will end up with 8 half square triangles. And then you will press these and trim them to measure 4.5 inches square. You will lay out your 8 half square triangles, 4 background squares, and 4 print squares as shown in the diagram. You will sew these into 4 separate rows and then sew your rows together. As you sew these together, you will press toward the solid squares. So you'll press towards the background squares and then the print squares. And so then your seams will nest between your rows, and then once you're sewing your rows together, I pressed my seams open so that it will lay nice and flat. And here is how your finished block will look. For this throw size quilt, the blocks will measure 16.5 inches. You will repeat this process to make a total of 16 blocks. You will lay your blocks as shown in the diagram in 4 rows of 4 blocks each. Now let's take a look at the finished throw size quilt. As a reminder, in the video description below, you will find links to the printable pattern as well as all the materials I used to make this quilt. If you make your own Daydreams quilt, I'd love to see it. Please tag me on social media at Material Girl Quilts and use the hashtag Daydreams Quilt. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please click like and subscribe so you don't miss any tutorials going forward. Thanks so much for watching.